As Starlight Capital's technology marketing partner for today's event, 3 Point Capital offers a full range of investment banking services. As Brian Emerson has quickly become the entrepreneur's first choice and ideal investment banker for their startup or business. The firm has spent decades developing a platform for advisors, brokers, and bankers to leverage and serve its investors. Great Point Technology and Service, uh, they service high net worth individuals, families, institutions, corporations, and professional traders. And GPC showcases an expertise in special purpose real estate transactions known as DST. I'd like to thank the staff, Gaurav Rawat. If you have any trouble hearing or seeing the presentations today, please find the chat box on your screen and Gaurav will answer promptly as he's our tech event chat box moderator. And our technical director backstage, Sohini, making sure your online Zoom experience is running smoothly as possible. Her invaluable experience as a verified reporter in India. Technical directions and preparations can be available as a service to presenting entrepreneurs. And Laura Emerson, Starlight Capital's founding partner, volunteers her expertise as a writer. And now I present 6 entrepreneurs who will be representing their disruptive, innovative idea to our viewers and investors. Tom Bazel with NTS Innovations, Felipe Veron with Veron Vehicle Corporations, Mark Muller with Vascular Perfusion Solutions, Alex Seguin with AI/ML Technology Solution, Glenn Martin with Weed Incorporated, Stephen Cook with Volante Air Car, and our featured entrepreneur guest, Andy Hedrick of TrekkingTower.com. The agenda will consist of, first NTS will deliver a 10-minute overview, followed by a 10-minute live Q&A with the audience. All subsequent companies then will present 5-minute summaries, followed by Q&A. Feel free to enter questions for these companies in your chat box anytime during the presentation and answers. Okay, out of respect for everybody's time, let's get started so we can end this in 90 minutes. I'll have a timer. Thank you for participating today. And now we're going to start the presenting companies introductions.
Hey, Barb, one other thought is if everybody would make sure they're muted, we'll make sure we don't have any background noise. Thanks so much. Go ahead, Barb.
Okay. And thank you. I'm your host, Barbie Onwiko, live from Silicon Beach, California, the third most successful economy in the world. And now I'd like to introduce Tom Bazel with NTS Innovations, a science to commercialization company specializing in nanotech. And a video presentation.
Hello, my name is Tom Bazel, and I am the Chief Operating Officer at NTS Innovations, a company that specializes in the development of nanotechnology that has the potential to transform products, industries, and lives. We are currently leveraging the discovery by Dr. Paul Thibodeau at the University of Arkansas regarding the continuous motion of graphene to develop a semiconductor-based energy harvesting chip that will be able to create clean, reliable, efficient, and highly scalable power. Our initial target is to develop a chip that will be about the size of a dime, yet have similar power capabilities to a AA battery. I think all of us would recognize that the world has a very serious power problem. Whether you look at it from the perspective of logistics, the lines, the maintenance of the infrastructure, the cost, and more importantly, the fragility of some of this infrastructure with unforeseen circumstances that might impact the delivery of power, to environmental implications. Some of the traditional power sources have a significant impact on our environment, whether it be CO2 emissions, whether it be nuclear waste, or even something as simple as batteries ending up in the landfill and having a negative impact on our groundwater. And then from an economic perspective, the huge disparity that exists where hundreds of millions of people around the world do not have access to just basic power needs, and there's no hope of that access happening under traditional means in the near future. Combine all that with the developed world where we have an insatiable and growing appetite for more power, whether that be for a lot of deployed IoT devices, sensors, laptops, portable phones, and the electrification of automobiles. None of these problems are going to be solved with a single solution, but we believe the technology that we are developing will have a material impact on this power problem for the world. Let's take a look at how graphene can help solve this problem. It's been proven that graphene is constantly moving. In fact, at a nanoscale, you could almost think of graphene as a sheet blowing in the wind. But unlike that sheet, the graphene is moving because of a number of micro level variables that are impacting it, from temperature to vibration to a number of radiation and electronic signals that pass through it. We leverage this nanoscale phenomenon by making the graphene the moving component inside of a tiny energy harvesting circuit. And we multiply the number of circuits per chip to address various levels and requirements for power output. Now let's take a look at NTS's marketing approach. Our initial target market is the Internet of Things sensor devices industry. We recognize that there are significant opportunities well beyond this industry, and over time, we see even broader growth into much more scalable opportunities. But the IoT market is very uniquely right for us to start. First, they have a very clearly defined power problem. Many of the devices that are deployed are battery operated. These batteries don't have the sustained power necessary to make those devices run for an extended period of time. So they either have to have rechargeability or replacement of those batteries on an ongoing basis. This actually creates a problem for the developers of these devices where they have to dumb down the devices to manage power consumption to elongate those battery capabilities. Second, if you look at the IoT sensor market, it has one of the shortest time to market opportunities for technology discoveries. Most of us would clearly recognize that it's probably 18 to 36 months to introduce new technology into something as common as an iPhone or a laptop. But in the IoT sensor space, you're looking at an average development time of 4 months to discover a new technology and have it released within its specific market space. And then the other big advantage is the explosive growth that happens in this space. In 2021, it is anticipated that there will be 2.1 billion new devices deployed in the IoT space. So as you look at that, it doesn't take much of a market presence to have a significant starting point for this technology to prove itself in a very practical application. Let's take a look at the IoT power source competitive landscape. As you can see here, there are 3 dominant areas of opportunity. First, you have a wired solution. This solution is constrained because it can have an initial high cost, and more importantly, it doesn't meet the mobile requirements of many of these devices. As you look at the battery opportunity, while they have an initial low cost, they have an ongoing cost structure that is prohibitive, and they have some reliability and dependence issues that can't be managed over time. Existing energy harvesting solutions don't have the same ongoing cost structure. They are mobile, but they are dependent upon a single macro environmental characteristic like a Wi-Fi signal, light, or Bluetooth signal. GEH addresses many of these issues at a lower cost structure and the flexibility to address all of the needs for these devices over time. As we look at the journey to achieving a commercially available chip later this year, NTS has benefited from over a decade of research and development related to graphene. But the most significant progress has occurred in the last 2 years with the development of a proven manufacturable wafer based on mature semiconductor techniques that are readily available from chip foundries. At this point, the most challenging issues have been addressed. Now our focus is on packaging and manufacturing processes. The business plan forecast for NTS shows chip volumes increasing from the end of 2021 onward, with revenue and net income lagging by several months. Market engagement has been excellent, with over 100 organizations engaged to date and more than 50 OEMs signed up to receive development kits that will be released by mid-year. These development kits will allow these early adopters to complete proof of concept designs ahead of the commercial chip being released at the end of 2021. We believe we have the right leadership in place to make NTS successful. Don Meyer, the founder and CEO of NTS, has more than 25 years of experience in startup, innovation, and partnerships with contract manufacturers to be successful in this organization. Preston Carter is an experienced technology leader driving large-scale programs with DARPA, NASA, and Lawrence Livermore Labs, and myself, with more than 20 years of executive experience, including international assignments with Caterpillar Incorporated. Beyond the business leadership, we have an incredibly strong technical and science team. Dr. Paul Thibodeau is the original physicist who discovered the characteristics of graphene that make this technology possible. Dr. Hugh Churchill is an expert with background in nanotechnology and semiconductors. And finally, Dr. Jeff Dix is a specialist in semiconductor design. I would like to thank all of you for your time today in this presentation and encourage all of you to take the opportunity to learn more about NTS, our products, and opportunities that may exist between us and yourselves.
Thank you. That was a great presentation. Now I'd like to open the floor to questions. We'll have a 10-minute Q&A. If you have any questions, just type it in the chat box, and I'll go ahead and pick randomly. And okay, no questions. Okay, I'll have a question. Please tell us about your competitive advantage.
The competitive advantage of this solution is that it is clean and it's very independent of resources and the environment around it. As you look at it, there is no harmful output from this energy source, and it is highly scalable at many different levels. Today, we're targeting a very small electronic device in the IoT electronic sensors for the reasons that were highlighted in the video. But we already have work streams in place today that will scale this capability to much broader and much more significant power opportunities in other industry segments.
Thank you. And do you plan to what would you plan to do with the funds you raised for your startup?
The funds that we're raising right now are focused on manufacturing development processes and the final packaging and optimization development here in the next 3 to 6 months. That will also allow us to build out a development team to work with the OEMs that want to adopt this technology into their products. We already have several companies that are looking to have an engineering agreement between our two companies to help them design the prototype chips into their products. That's the primary use of funds for this current funding round.
Great. And would you be able to describe your target market?
Yes, the target market initially is industrial IoT sensors. A large percentage of these sensors are battery driven today, And one of the use case assessments that we did for a very small environment where they have to change the batteries frequently on a 3 to 4 month basis shows that it's highly labor intensive and high cost structure to manage even a small environment of about 40 sensors, $6,000 per year just in labor to go swap out these batteries. So at scale, this has significant advantages to the deployment of these type of sensors because now you don't have to have the devices swapped out as often. There's no rechargeability required. It's generating power constantly from the micro level environment as it was highlighted in the video.
Thank you. And I was just curious, why the Internet of Things?
Again, as we highlighted in the video, it's a very uniquely positioned opportunity for a starting point for this type of technology. Most Internet of Things sensors have very, very low power requirements. They're highly mobile, and they have explosive growth. We have a number of OEMs that are eagerly awaiting the prototype development kits that are coming out mid-year. Because as shared in the video, there's a very recognized power problem in this industry, especially for the battery-operated devices. Many developers and the OEM manufacturers have to limit the capabilities of their devices just to manage the power over the long term.
That's interesting. And is that just the batteries for everything like cars or home devices? Is that what you're referring to?
Well, long term, we'd be looking at scalability into other areas, ranging from laptops, personal devices, even iPhones and automotive capabilities. But the batteries we're talking about right now are for very small sensors that manage environmental controls. They have detectors for various things. Some of you may very well have some of these deployed in your home. If you have a door sensor for open and closed doors, or a leak sensor if there is water detected. Those are the batteries that we're talking about for the current phase of our first target market.
So you're targeting in-home devices for smart homes.
Smart homes and smart businesses, really our primary target market is industrial applications for IoT sensors. So if you think about a manufacturing company that has automation on their assembly lines and they have a variety of sensors tracking material through that assembly line, those are the type of sensors that we're targeting initially.
Could you do you have an example of like a type of company that would be ideal?
Actually, any manufacturing company would be ideal, ranging from the company I previously worked for, Caterpillar, a lot of automation on their shop floors, and then a lot of sensors that manage that automation. But it could also be in a process-driven environment where you're manufacturing, food or drugs or things like that, where you have to have high levels of control and automation and management of the flow.
Okay, so are you targeting smart buildings too?
Yeah, we do have some OEMs that we already are engaged with to help design the product into their sensors that manage commercial buildings for heating, cooling, for lighting, and just general power management. A couple of questions that I see here in the chat, I'm going to go ahead, Barbie, and address. Right now, we're in the middle of a fundraise for just over $10 million. And that's through a variety of mechanisms, including a private placement memorandum and other investment vehicles. We are looking at and see a tremendous opportunity for this technology in the medical space. The medical device space is probably one where we would partner with somebody and license the technology into a major manufacturer or a major leading company in the medical field. Just because of some of the complexities and nuances for that environment with FDA approvals and other things that we're just never going to be experts about, and really look to partner with somebody to leverage this technology in there. But we've already been approached by some individuals talking about the applicability of this technology for, hearing aids, for insulin pumps, and even longer term, more scalable solutions like a pacemaker. In fact, a friend of mine's husband, his pacemaker battery ran out 3 years ahead of anticipation and had to be rushed into emergency surgery. And that generated a whole series of conversations with that family and their doctor about how this technology might actually apply in a broader sense for medical devices.
Thank you. Any other questions? I think there's one here. Is the physics basis piezoelectric or triboelectric?
The physics base is piezoelectric predominantly. It's a moving, it's capturing the movement in the freestanding graphene with any number of features inside of the chip itself. There's been publications that are publicly available about the technology. It'd be pretty hard to go into that in any detail in the amount of time we have here.
Okay.
The question about how does it compare to some of the advances in battery technology. The battery technologies that are being developed now are improvements on a theme. They still require recharging. The newer batteries recharge faster and hold the charge longer, hold greater amount of draw capability on a duty cycle. The difference here is this is a power generation source. It does not require any input to create that energy. And in fact, we've had conversations with some of the battery manufacturers about how this could play into an augmentation scenario in the short term and potentially a complete battery replacement situation on a larger scale in the future. Regarding the question on are we looking outside the IoT space and health technologies? Yes, we are looking at a number of industries as was shared in our beachhead strategy, but we are very focused on IoT for the reasons that we specified. I think everyone would recognize, time to market is the way to win anything, and the IoT market would put us into product that would be available to end consumers faster than anything else, plus the scale that exists within that market would prove to drive the profitability of the company over time.
Thank you for that. I think there's a question. Is there licenses?
Yes, we are looking at licensing opportunities, and again, I'll talk about some specific areas that we're already looking at, where there is a more complex or more highly regulated industry where this technology would have a significant play. We're almost certainly going to license with partners. Again, if I go back to the medical industry, there's a lot of nuances about that industry. And the lead times and the engineering and the validation and the regulations require tremendous amount of expertise to get something successfully adopted and meet regulatory requirements. So that's one example. Other areas, as we look at larger scale capabilities like hybrid batteries or battery augmentation, that's likely going to be a partnership arrangement that we have with someone that's more directly in that industry. And we do have ongoing discussions with some industries that are looking just to be a development partner, early adopter for this technology, and that could also result in a licensing agreement as well.
Thank you. That would be great actually for Tesla because they're having a battery factory. They're building one in Texas, I think. Thank you for your company overview and presentation. And that's for the 10 minutes. I'd like to now introduce our next entrepreneur. That's Mr. Felipe Verón with Verón Vehicles Corporation. Verón Vehicles develops urban air mobility infrastructure networks. Now for the 5-minute video presentation.
Mobility infrastructure is transformational. A revolution in mobility infrastructure means a revolution for society. Hi, my name is Felipe Baron, and I'm the founder and CEO of Baron Vehicles, a disruptive infrastructure company. I want to spend a few minutes to tell you about a very interesting investment opportunity. I want to tell you about our company, what we're developing, and what we're offering for the future of mobility. Baron Vehicles is a globally recognized startup that is developing urban air mobility. Urban air mobility is a nascent industry. It's the next generation in aviation. It'll be electric and for urban use. It's about a new form of mobility infrastructure, one with which we can provide a whole host of radically new transportation services in the cities, suburbs, and regions. What we're developing are called infrastructure networks. They are a collection of our vertiports connected to each other via virtual lanes over the low altitude skies, and our fleets of air vehicles servicing between them. We're bringing the legacy of aviation into the cities, and that legacy is connection without the need to build anything in between. There is no cost per mile in our infrastructure. And that's where the potential for disruption lies. Unlike other forms of mobility infrastructure, we don't need to throw asphalt or build tracks, bridges, or dig tunnels. That's a valuable proposition for a region of the world where there's a void of mobility infrastructure. And that is the huge value of our form of mobility infrastructure. The three main components of our infrastructure networks are our vertiports, our airspace integration architecture, and our fleets of air vehicles. We're not developing any of these technologies in our company. We are integrating these technologies. We're sort of like the airline in which we will be providing the transportation services to different customers, from logistics companies to tourism companies, all the way to air taxi services and many others that include medical services and disaster relief services, for example. So we are designing our vertiports. We're developing that concept. We will be producing and building our own vertiports. The airspace integration architecture is something very unique to Varon vehicles. We are working that together with regulators so that we can integrate in a very safe way into the airspace. We don't intend to mix with traditional aviation. And as aircraft manufacturers that will eventually be providing our fleets of air vehicles, as they develop their products, we are partnered with them so that that development is in line with our expected operations. We are a US company, but we have chosen to implement in Latin America because the void of proper mobility infrastructure in this part of the world is far greater than almost anywhere else. That means that the opportunity is greater here for transformation and for impact. We have established ourselves as the leader of urban air mobility in this region. There's a blue ocean situation, which is very unique when it comes to investments, with a growing number of barriers for entry, and also with a tremendous potential for company valuation growth. So thank you for your attention and your interest. You can contact me directly at my email, which is on this slide. You can also visit varonvehicles.com for much more information and content. My team and I are standing by to speak with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Varone. That was a great presentation. I'd like to open the floor for some questions.
Sure, thank you very much. About the revenue model, we have 4 operational pillars in our company that are revenue streams. First is the transportation side, which is the pay per ride, the pay per transport side of it. Second is the energy. We are having all the energy assets that we require to operate these electric vehicles at our vertiports. And we're devising ways to exploit those energy assets via connectivity to the grid, use of those banks of batteries, and others to generate revenue. Third is the real estate strategy. We are a company that is going to foster urban growth around our vertiports. That means that we are getting into the real estate and urban development aspect of the operation as well. And that's a third line of revenue. And fourth and last is the data side of it. This is going to be very data intensive. Automation is very important for us. And there are very interesting opportunities for data gathering, processing, and selling to different data markets. And that includes city information gathering from onboard our air vehicles, weather data gathering, and other related as well. So that's our business model in that question there.
Well, data is the new oil. Any other questions for Mr. Varone? Are there any regulatory hurdles?
Yeah, absolutely. We need to work with regulators. We are working in the selected city of Cartagena, which is right behind me in the country of Colombia. This is where we're getting started. We are working with the Colombian civil aviation authorities in developing those new regulations that are required. We're also very engaged with NASA in the advanced air mobility part of NASA and the FAA. So regulations are a big part of what we are engaged with as we develop the new forms to integrate these vehicles in a very safe manner. Yes. There's a question about economic growth and stability, government funding, utility. That's very important for us. We are very focused on impact. We're very interested in how this new form of mobility infrastructure can actually connect regions and generate socioeconomic development. The economic efficiency of our operations is really important. We're talking about a new form of aviation here. These are not regular helicopters. These are a new type of air vehicles. They're electric, and they're meant to be operated by a new breed of operators, not traditional pilots. That means that we are focused on the economic efficiency to be able to reach more people, more customers, not only for the air taxi application, but for many others in tourism generation, new ways of sightseeing, new forms to visit natural parks, new connectivity between islands, logistics applications, new ways to intervene logistics chains in which we can replace ground trucks that are highly contributors to greenhouse and other pollutants emissions. So we are very focused on the impact side of it. And the fact that Latin America has an inherent lack of proper mobility infrastructure actually means that there's a tremendous opportunity for connection and new forms of connectivity in this region.
Go ahead. There's a question about the footprint of the vertiport. How much space required to take off and land?
So the space is very similar to regular helicopters. These are all vertical takeoff and landing vehicles. There's different models of air vehicles that we are partnered with and manufacturers that we're partnered with. And these are going to be probably vertiports that take somewhere between a block of a city or a smaller space. There's different categories of vertiports, and it depends on how many vertipads each vertiport is going to have. In other words, landing and takeoff spaces. But we're most interested on the regions, on the suburbs, how we connect the inside of the cities with the regions. So we are looking at strategies where inside of the cities can allow for spaces, for example, like shopping malls, shopping mall rooftops that are very spacious and available and already are mobility hubs, to connect those with parts of regions and suburbs that basically in Latin America are open fields. In Latin America, we don't have urban sprawl because of that inavailability or lack of proper mobility infrastructure. We have very small, densely packed cities with some of the worst congestion problems in the planet. Let me see a bit of another answer here. What type of energy? Well, these are going to be electric. We intend for our vehicles to be electric. Some air vehicles on the higher capacity range that are on the 8 or more passenger type of range are vehicles that are probably going to be hybrid electric, which means that they use fuel but are electric in nature. But overall, the impact on the environment is something that is crucially important for our development. So they're meant to be cleaner overall as compared to a person taking a regular street vehicle from origin to destination. There's a whole bunch of questions. I'm going to try and answer here these very quickly. Please do contact me. My email, I'll put it up again in the chat. It is already there. You can get back to me if I'm not able to answer all these questions in the 10-minute slot that we have. What is the general plan? We have a very specific roadmap for the next few years. We intend to have our first services in operation here in the city of Cartagena, which is behind me. I'll just move myself to show you one of the vertiports, if you can notice it right behind me in the city of Cartagena. Somewhere between 4 to 6 years from today. To do that, we have a very clear roadmap with our dozens of partners so that we start implementation, and that's happening already today. So this is not an idea. We're very much ahead in this game. Let's see. What other questions do we have here? I see a whole bunch. I'm sorry. Okay, so some people want to ask me questions without typing it. Please contact me on my email, LinkedIn. You can visit varonvehicles.com to see our contact information. We're very ready to answer all your questions.
Thank you so
How much
much.
funding do we need? Okay, thanks for that question. We're currently in our second seed round. We are raising $15.2 million for this current round. There's a very specific justification for that. We can get into all the cash flow projections, the expenditure plan, all the milestones. That is part of the overall capital requirement that we have to produce this first infrastructure network in the city of Cartagena. And again, that's our second seed round for $15.2 million. And we'll be happy to answer and go into details on that. Percentage of business, public people versus package cargo. We don't have a specific pie chart for that, but we do know that we'll be starting with packages and cargo. Logistics is going to very probably be the first applications that we'll have. And it's because we know that we will be transporting packages and boxes before we move any people. This is a gradual implementation. In the industry, we are well aware of that. It's not that nice to we're going to bring air taxis to the urban centers at once. It's a very gradual thing. There's many things that need to come into integration here, and public acceptance is a critical central part of that. So for that and other regulatory reasons, we know that we'll be transporting packages before we move people.
Thank you so much for all your questions. I'd like to move on to our next presenter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Mark Muller with Vascular Perfusion Solutions. They designed a disruptive portable donated organ transport system that solves the problem of efficiency. Now for a 5-minute video.
Hi, I'm Mark Muller, President of VPS, and I'm excited to tell you about the VPS Encore device. It's a platform that will create value well into the future. It can be used in several ways: to transport organs, limbs, and other tissue for transplant, to provide ex vivo therapy. Imagine treating a cancerous liver outside the body so you won't poison the patient. It makes organ banking possible, serves as a bioreactor, and even grows new tissue for regenerative medicine. Our initial focus will be on organ transport, beginning with the heart. As part of the pre-market approval process, the FDA has given us a breakthrough device designation. That means we're near the front of the line whenever we need assistance. This priority status will help us move more quickly toward approval to begin sales. So with that introduction, let me tell you about the market. Quite simply, the supply cannot meet the demand. In the US alone, over 114,000 patients are on the transplant waiting list, and many will sadly run out of time because not enough organs are available. Here's why. Most organs are still transported on ice in styrofoam coolers, where they immediately begin to die. Because of ischemic damage, the organ has to reach the recipient within 4 to 6 hours. Otherwise, the damage becomes too great and the organ is lost. VPS Encore will radically change the game by adding time. We provide oxygenated, cold perfusion to the organ, keeping the cells alive longer, much longer. Imagine doubling the time an organ can stay alive. This will make more organs available, which also means better matches and fewer rejections. VPS Encore changes the game in other critical ways. It has unparalleled portability. The closest competitor is about the size of an office copy machine and requires special transport. Our device is about the size of a coffee carafe. Only one person is needed for transport and operation. It fits easily into the overhead bin of a commercial airliner. VPS Encore is also affordable. The competition's machine cost $250,000, with replacement cartridges at over $40,000. Our entire device, which is disposable, will retail for less than their replacement cartridge. Finally, VPS Encore is easy to use. Instead of blood, it circulates an enriched solution that's widely available and already approved by the FDA. It requires no external power source and has a simple, rugged design that's far less likely to fail. So the VPS Encore device is a game changer, but more importantly, it works. Although our initial FDA application is for 8 hours, we've actually proven that the device works for 24 hours and more. To corroborate our results, the U.S. Air Force 59th Medical Wing provided independent validation. The results after 10 experiments were so good that Harvard's Wyss Institute asked to use our device to test its hibernation drug. As a result, DARPA asked VPS and the Wyss Institute for a joint proposal. The VPS Encore device has patents pending. Early prototypes operated under an exclusive license from the University of Texas, which we still maintain. Since then, we have so improved the technology that we filed 2 patent applications owned solely by VPS. 2 more will soon be filed and several others are underway. We are locking in the final design and we are just about ready to begin preclinical trials. We expect the retail price to be about 7 times the cost of goods sold. In addition, a reimbursement study we commissioned determined that this expense will be a pass-through line item to the hospital and insurance. If sufficient funding is available, we plan to produce 1 new device per year, starting with the heart, then kidneys, livers, and lungs. In fact, we've already begun cooperative research in the kidney and liver arenas. VPS does not intend to go into the business of medical device marketing and sales. Instead, we will license companies with established distribution and sales networks, receiving royalties in return. The market is not difficult to reach. There are fewer than 100 critical decision makers to help drive our success. In the U.S., these include 58 organ procurement organizations that regulate organ donation and 35 transplant centers that account for half of all transplants. Our scientific advisory council is strong, with transplant surgeons and others that are prominent in their fields, including the military, research, and organ procurement. The VPS team is led by Mr. DeBrook, a Harvard MBA, deal maker and turnaround specialist of long standing, and Professor Benegan, who has spent 40 years in perfusion research. The rest of our team includes engineers, scientists, and project management, all with experience in the medical device industry. Clearly, we have the right product and people in place, and we hope you'll join us on this journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Now I'm opening the floor for questions. Please go ahead and type them in the chat box. And I'll actually ask the first question. Between now and the FDA approval, do you have any other revenue services?
Okay, I'll address that, but I see two questions here that have come up first, so I want to make sure the audience gets addressed.
Okay.
Materials and design. So probably it's somewhat obvious that we have to use bioacceptable materials. And so the manufacturer that we've teamed with is very experienced. They've already put out 100 FDA approved different products, and those materials are all biocompatible. What does it actually cost? The cost of goods sold is roughly $5,000, something like that. How much funding is required for a percentage of equity in ROI? That's a little complicated for me to do off the top of my head. What I will say is that we're looking for roughly 13 million now. We've already raised 5 million. We're looking for 13 to pursue aggressively the heart transport device. If we can get up to about 35 million, we can pursue several other devices at the same time and some of the other product lines that were mentioned. Going back now to Barb's question about before FDA approval, what other revenue sources might we have? Well, we actually have two. One of them is a research unit that we can lease to other researchers so they can also investigate this technology and some of the benefits that can accrue. For example, things like the bioreactor, skin growth for burn victims at a very rapid pace, and other possibilities. The other is pet use. We don't need FDA approval for that either. And there is a small market for example, kidneys in cats. A lot of cats die from kidney disease. And it turns out that there's only 4 types of blood types for cats, and 95% of them have roughly the same type. So there's a couple of other sources. Let's see, you mentioned it's disposable. Elaborate, please. Basically, there is the device itself, which is about the size of a coffee carafe. There is a small oxygen tank that also fits into a carry-on sized case. The case has a thin shell and some foam, basically, to keep things cold. And all of the parts basically are disposable or recyclable. The oxygen tank, of course, can get reused. I see another question about, do all devices support severed limbs? So each organ, for example, might have a slight variation on the device. For example, going from a heart to a kidney, all we have to do is change the connector inside the device. It's that simple. For a limb, we'll have to change the canister, and that's not going to fit on a carry-on. It's going to have to be a little bit larger suitcase kind of apparatus. We also have some roll-up plastic versions that we also would like to try out for the military, for example. Do we stand in competition with 3D organ printing? No, I don't think so. As much as the press is promoting 3D organ printing, that's still a long ways off, and we have a need right now. We've got many organ donors and a lot of organs that basically never get donated. They don't even call outside of a 300-mile range right now because they know there's not enough time to get those organs to someone that can use them.
Any other questions from the audience? Okay. Beyond funding, what do you see as the biggest challenge?
So right now, there's no doubt at all that the technology works. It's been tested and tested over and over again. We're very confident about that. The biggest challenge for us is to make it as simple as possible and as small as possible. Frankly, we're struggling to get it in that carry-on case, but for right now, we still are confident that we can do that for the heart. So right now, that's probably the biggest challenge.
I see another question. Organ bioengineering is closer than 3D printing. Are you in competition with them?
No, again, I don't think so, because when a person donates an organ, you have a proven functional component that's ready to go. And most of these other technologies are, they're still pretty futuristic and not quite proven. This transplants go on now day to day. Unfortunately, about 85% of people on that waiting list will just never get one. So that's kind of what we're trying to address.
How are the devices disposed of, and what protocols are taken in regards to the environment?
We have talked about different ways of doing this. It's not, none of these materials are any really different than something you might find in any other kind of medical device. There's nothing really special there. One of the things we thought about, for example, even is giving the case itself to the recipient of the organ as a keepsake. They might want to see what that device is that they got. The device itself, we're trying to manufacture it to be non-reusable because that's just easier for hospitals to deal with. Otherwise, there's all kinds of decontamination issues, and that gets complicated. Is DARPA non-dilutive investment in 5 million received? No, the 5 million received is from investors, family offices and that kind of thing. DARPA is completely separate. We've already received another one. We, in the past, received a $1 million grant from the Air Force, and now DARPA again is interested in us. So that's completely separate. Those are non-dilutive. What powers the device? Well, the original device was powered entirely by the energy in the oxygen tank that was stored. What we found, though, is that that's not very efficient. Switching just the oxygen wastes a lot of the oxygen. So now it's a tiny battery that simply activates a switch and gently opens and closes the valve to perfuse the organ. How long did it take to raise the current 5 million? I don't know, a few months, something like that.
Okay. And how different is your device from other perfusion machines?
So there are some other machines that are starting to be tested in the clinic now. They're not, I think there's a kidney machine, for example, that is actually approved and being used. But we heard recently when we were at an organ recovery that there were 8 of those machines in the next room, and the doctors didn't want to use them. They're too big, they're too heavy, they're too hard to use. So those machines are sitting there and they're probably $150,000 a piece, and nobody really wants to use them. So ours is just so much simpler. You basically hook up a cannula to the heart, you put the heart into the bath in the canister and snap it shut. You hook up the oxygen, push the battery in, and turn on the oxygen, and you're ready to go.
And what powers the device?
I think I just discussed that. Basically, our device is a small battery. We decided that's just the simplest, easiest way, and it's very efficient with the oxygen. We can take a small tank, maybe about this size, and it can power the device for 12 hours and more. Do we have UK, EU, and South Africa for partnering and licensing your market plan? We do have patent applications that are pending, and we have the ability to go into other markets. and we're currently trying to decide which of them are most attractive. The EU is obviously most attractive to us outside the US. And the revenue projections that we showed were just for the US alone, but certainly we're thinking about the EU and other markets.
Why did you pick the EU first?
Well, it's so much easier to control things if you're right here in the United States. And we happen to have some great partners right down the street, literally. One of the organ procurement organizations is 2 miles away, and they're very enthusiastic about this project. We have a transplant hospital right here again, about 2 miles down the street, where we can participate in the activities. So it's just natural, I guess.
Which of these places then do you think has the lowest barrier of entry for you?
Do you mean the EU versus the US, for example?
Yes, because there's a lot of FDA regulations here. Is that why you prefer the EU?
Well, we don't prefer the EU.
To begin
Well,
market.
it's kind of funny that you asked that, because the FDA actually called us the other day. As I noted, we had a breakthrough designation, which only about 100 companies out of thousands each year get. And they're very interested to find out what our plans are. Are we going to the US first or EU? And they're actually trying to kind of clean things up a little bit so it doesn't take so long to get through the process. So it is more difficult and takes a little longer in the US, but we have a lot more control and a lot more almost instant ability to contact and that kind of thing. Whereas in Europe, it's a little bit more remote and removed. How are the organs sourced? So organs are made available by donors here in the US. And typically, an organ donor is known when they're in the hospital, for example, and if the person passes away, the team is already prepared. They know everything about that person and the organs.
Are your filed patents provisional design and or utility filings?
Okay, so all of our applications are provisional applications that have been converted to PCT applications, and they're all utility. There's no design patents. Some of them are the methods of using the machine and also the structure itself. Is this cold perfusion? Yes, it is, absolutely.
I was just wondering, you had touched on the let's see, phase one. I guess doesn't need you don't need too much requirements to use them as a place to practice, right? Or because that's animal testing. Have you sought out that avenue for getting?
Maybe you're talking about preclinical testing. So
Yeah.
we are actually just about to start our preclinical testing, and then after that we'll follow the clinical testing with people. It's very fortunate, we also have a group called Bridge PTS that's one of the well-known preclinical testing groups right here in San Antonio where we are. They're wonderful people, and they'll be handling that for us. And we have our protocols done, and we're just about ready to go. How far are we from commercialization? We expect to begin preclinical trials this year, certainly, and clinical trials, we'll be doing them next year. If we're fortunate, we believe that we can start licensing sales and that kind of thing in early, 2023. So next year's 2022. One thing I also wanted to back up just a little bit. When someone asked about cold perfusion, there's a huge benefit to cold perfusion. Our nearest competitor for hearts, for example, is Transmedics. That has quite a large machine, and they do warm perfusion with blood. The problem there is if anything fails in that machine, you lose the organ. With our machine, if it stops working, it reverts to the standard of care. You basically have a very cold heart in a nutritious solution, and you still got hours of time before the organ dies. So even if our machine fails, it reverts to the standard of care. And that's a big advantage. What is the go, no-go clinical use? Is it a percentage of organs usable or something else? No, what it will be is probably something like 30-day and 1-year survival of the recipients of organs. The nice thing about this technology is, even though we're not claiming it in our indications for use with the FDA, not only does the organ stay in roughly the same condition as it was when you put it in, it actually resuscitates and improves, in some cases, the condition of the organ. So that's also a big benefit.
Have you also answered this question about the estimate to the commercialization timeline?
Yes, that will be, like I say, we're looking at the beginning of 2023.
And how have transplant personnel reacted from
Uh,
this change of standard care?
Oh, you mean
I mean,
the,
change.
yes, the transplant surgeons are quite enthusiastic. We've interviewed quite a few, and we're continuing that. They're excited because it's easy to use. It's not a whole lot different from putting the organ in a bag with solution. The only big difference is that we connect it up to a cannula so that we can perfuse the organ, and it goes in a nice case. They like the extra measure of safety. One of them even said, you know, we thought, why would they even want to use it in occasions where you have two people in the same hospital for, say, a kidney donation? And he said, there's all kinds of things that can go wrong. If we've got something like this to maintain the organ, we can all relax and we don't have to rush. And the final thing that kind of surprised us was they were excited that they could actually manage their lives better. One in particular was saying, I don't have to get up at 2 in the morning to do something. Now I can come in with the A team and everybody's had a good amount of sleep. So they're actually pretty excited about this, this product.
Thank you so much for your presentation. And I'll go ahead now and introduce our next presenter,
Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Mr. Alex Seguin with AI ML Technology Solutions. About their company, for self-driving cars and autonomous robotics to data analytics and consumer electronics, AI ML Technology Solutions provides the tools for anyone from middle school to students to working professionals to gain hands-on experience in this space and start developing AI ML with their product, Excel AI Educational Initiative. They have their own all-in-one platform for exploring and building with machine learning. I'll go ahead now and transfer it to Mr. Seguin.
Hello, my name is Alex Seguin, CEO, co-founder of AI ML Technology Solutions. I have a background in the United States Air Force working on the C-5 Galaxy aircraft as a sheet metal mechanic. Shortly after, I pursued an engineering degree at the University of Texas and later got an MBA while working at Honeywell at Auburn University. My CTO, Bart Moyenbeck, has worked in multiple industries, launching 60 products over a period of 40 years and leading multiple technology teams. At AI ML Technology Solutions, we're working on generating the next generation of AI and sensor fusion applications. Who doesn't know the Star Wars robot R2-D2? Who wouldn't want an R2-D2 around their house, either performing tasks or being a companion, going around and doing inspections from midnight to 8 in the morning, or even performing inspections in an area that's hazardous to humans? We started our company in October 2020 with the strategy to grow from classroom to real-world applications. Starting with education, we launched an MVP in December 2020, and so far have sold 30 systems with revenues at $25,000 for January and February of 2021. We have plans for thermal imaging applications, single sensor solutions, as well as current collaboration with the Boston Dynamics Spot Robot and acoustic imaging solutions for a multi-sensor mobility application. Our problem statement is simple, as users want to generate actionable insight to understand risks in real time. Our solution utilizes cost-effective hardware integrated with scalable AI machine learning models to evolve to your future needs. What that really means is you can level up your current systems with AI capabilities and pick and choose the functionality you want to deploy to your devices and systems in the field. The total available market is $2 billion, or 400,000 users a year. The computer vision application space for robotics is growing at 75%, which takes us to 130,000 users a year for the SAM. We're targeting 3% of that number, which gets us 4,000 users a year at a $5,000 price point. Our business model is based on 4,000 users a year in 2025 at an average selling price of $5,000. This equates to $20 million in 2025, with revenues cumulatively growing in the next 5 years to $60.5 million. The competitive landscape for sensor fusion incorporates traditional visual camera producers such as Sony, thermal imagers from FLIR, as well as mobility solutions from Boston Dynamics and others. There's an array of companies that also produce AI insights, but few have actual sensor experience to deploy into the field. Our competitive advantage is based off of expertise integrating hardware and sensors into past modular designs. Because we can take off-the-shelf hardware, we can integrate and develop faster than our competitors. Similar can be told with AI machine learning capabilities. We can take the latest and greatest models and incorporate them into our designs in real time and upgrade them in the field. Our educational MVP was launched and is currently fueling our growth. We designed and launched the Sensor Fusion app in order to meet the needs for the educational market for the Excel AI initiative. Currently patent pending, we simplify the machine learning model workflow for our users in order to provide hands-on experience to take users to develop the first machine learning model for computer vision applications. What's more exciting is the future for sensor fusion and AI. We imagine a world of multiple solutions attached to different mobility options where drones and robotic solutions can work together. In this image, you see a drone and a robotic solution on a rooftop to help an individual on the roof determine where they should walk in order to avoid the fire hotspots on the rooftop. At AI ML Technology Solutions, we're not only establishing an ecosystem, but also a platform of offerings in the sensor and fusion and AI space. We have experienced technology leadership teams that are paired up with junior engineers in order to help them establish a foothold in the technology space within AI machine learning. We look forward to creating the future with sensor fusion and AI applications, starting with both educational and industrial offerings. Our ultimate goal is to come up with 5 robots interacting with 5 drones and fixed cameras to accomplish a task. Thank you for joining our presentation today as we look to find partners who are just as passionate about the technology and are interested to support our growth. At AI ML Technology Solutions, we are empowering the AI developers of tomorrow.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Mr. Segui. I'd like to open the floor for questions. Please go ahead and type it in the chat box. I see manufacturing or leasing technology. Are you leasing the technology?
Yeah, our goal is to eventually lease, and we're trying to come up with like the AI model and the sensor suite that we can deploy to multiple robotic solutions. So basically attaching that brain, if you will, to basic mobility solutions.
Thank you. Tell us more about who your ideal partners would be.
Yep. So Bart and I actually have a background in thermal imaging, and what we're trying to do is do autonomous inspections. The video actually sent out is a slightly modified video for this presentation, and it goes into our background. And what we're trying to do ultimately is inspections at 10 times industry standard, so eventually 24/7 coverage on industrial inspections using thermal, array of visual inspections, as well as others. Current customers in that space are using thermal imagers today, and we're going to target that space and expand into other imaging technologies as well.
Tell us about your marketing strategy.
Yep. Thank you, Laura. Our marketing strategy is basically to grow and expand with digital marketing lead gen efforts. What happens in this space is there's a lot of distribution resellers out there. So it's pairing up with those not only in the technical education space for the lower end platform, but also on the higher end, your DigiKeys, your Grangers of the world. So it's really a B2B interaction there, and then some B2C as
Yes,
well.
you said you're going to care to me at the end of the
Sorry about that.
Mhm. Okay, and any other questions from the audience? I heard that I heard from you earlier that you said your revenue stream came from the education platform that you have. Tell us about that product because I was interested in it.
Yeah, so
for
there's
the,
actually, if you see in video here, what we have is the ability to do self-driving for education, but in our educational products, we have a platform to generate easily machine learning models. So we're training it a lot earlier for junior colleges, even down to the high school level, but deploying it to not only a self-driving car, but also robotic arms and some other things we're going into. The industrial inspection capability will have robotics arms with different robot solutions. But again, we're really selling that upgradable model, almost like an app store for mobility and ML models, that you'll be able to pick and choose a certain selection of capabilities and deploy it to your device.
I see a question about your array size and use of funds.
Yeah, so we're targeting 2 to 10 million. And what that does is on the 2 million side, it's a range, right? It would allow us to launch the industrial proof of concept and get that customer feedback. And our split on that spend would be 45% for research, development, and AI engineers, and the other 25 to 35% on marketing, sales, and then infrastructure. So we want to be able to have the list of machine learning models in the cloud, and even the ability for people all over the world to contribute to annotations and some basic labeling capabilities. In the $10 million use case, it'll accelerate our 15 robot solution, 5 robots on the ground, 5 drones, maybe 5 fixed cameras. And we'll be able to tackle that with the A team from our contacts currently in the industry and hire those individuals that Bart and I know from thermal imaging and others.
Are you working on areas such as in other areas?
Yeah, I don't know if that, delivering many products to the destination. Yeah, so we're currently focused on inspection, and there's a lot of people, for instance, doing robotics in a hospital, and that space is pretty crowded from a competitive standpoint. So what we want to do is have mini versions of everything we do at the school educational field and have industrial inspections, because that's our expertise. Once we get comfortable in that space, it's going to be, what else can we grow into?
Thank you so much. Does anyone else have any questions? You had mentioned something about using robotic arms, and let's see, what was the other use that you spoke of?
Yeah, I mean, drone kind of interactions
Okay,
with the
that's
robot on the ground and drones. So for instance, using machine learning and AI to add functionality and level up your capability on your current robot arm. And our goal again is to have that brain or the GPU with our models so that you can apply it to various numbers of robotic arms. So if you have one already, you can just plug and play our models into that system.
And you had said something about cars using this technology. Are you talking about something like that is still in production, like Apple Car? That would be ideal.
Yeah, so our educational car, what it does is it finds blocks using machine learning models. And again, you'll see it here. And what happens is you train a model, you can go up to the next object, and that's in the video I shared. When you're in an industrial facility, we can also use the same technique to go from checkpoint 1, 2, 3, 4 using machine learning models that are uploaded on the device. And what's brilliant about TensorFlow, I saw the question earlier, TensorFlow Lite, these models are anywhere from 5 to 6 megabytes. So the computational capability required to drive these models is getting so good. And that's what's changed over the last 5 years. So we should be able to autonomously go at night, even midnight to 8 in the morning through a facility, take pictures along that route, and then eventually go into other areas as well.
Can you tell us more about applications for AI education at the high school level?
Correct. Yes. So currently we have an Excel AI kit. I'll type that in the chat bar as well. And what that is a simplified version of machine learning model. We developed an app and it's currently available. And what it does is helps high school, junior college, even college level develop the first machine learning model. So from training a model, from all the images, and what is very apparent when you start the process is your first model is going to be bad, but the more images you throw in the library, just like kids develop early and you show them a lot of things and they eventually learn over time, the machine learning models will learn better over time. So we'll have those model development kits with cameras and our Coral from Google, which is the GPU, and then we'll deploy it to a self-driving car. You'll have options as a high schooler or a system of students to deploy those into robotics arms and others. We currently have 30 systems sold. The biggest customer is actually out in Kentucky, and it's actually a Harvard buddy of mine, but he believes that this is the future, so he's providing that opportunity for his kids.
Thank you. Anyone else have any more questions? Yes, machine learning is projected to be really hot the next 5 years. So thank you, Mr. Sagun.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
Our next presenter is Mr. Glenn Martin from Weed Inc. They have development application of cannabis-derived compounds for the treatment of human disease. And now for the video.
Welcome to the world of Weed Inc. Hello, everyone. My name is Glenn Martin. I'm the president and CEO of Weed Inc. Our symbol is BUDZ, B-U-D-Z, on the OTC markets. The company was formed in 2005 by myself and my daughter, Nicole Marie Breen, who is our current administrator and our secretary and treasurer. Weed Inc. was formed as a global holding company primarily to do research and development in medical cannabis on an international basis. Let me speak to you now about the Reg A offering that is before you. It's a unit offering. We're selling 40 million shares at $1 per share, and it comes with a full warrant. The warrant is exercisable at $1.50 after 12 months, and it's good for 2 years. So fully diluted, fully exercised with warrants, this will bring in $100 million to Weed Inc. Our initial $40 million will be used for medical research and development, and we will use the final $60 million to build out our manufacturing capabilities worldwide. In 2017, within 6 months of cannabis becoming legal in Australia, I went down there and formed Weed Australia Limited, and underneath it we put our nonprofit arm so we could control our IP, the Cannabis Institute of Australia, the CIA. I had to have a little fun. Then we went on to Israel in May of 2018, and I formed Weed Israel Cannabis Limited. And why Israel? Because Israel has the major researchers in the world on cannabis. We have Weed Israel to do our research and product development, both pharmaceutical and non-pharmaceutical. We will take those products and export them to Australia. Once we get America online, we will also go with the FDA, and we will have them cleared here at the FDA at home. We then, in 2019, I formed Weed Hong Kong Limited. Why Hong Kong? Well, Australia is our major gateway to Asia and Oceania. In the United States, I bought a golf course in New York. So why a golf course? Well, it's 10 miles inside the border of New York called the Sugar Hill Golf Course, and it has unlimited water extraction rights. Do you hear CBD water, THC water? It's for our infused beverage and edibles division, and we will start with our hemp research there. Back in 2017, I also formed Sangra Biosciences in La Veta, Colorado. It's got a 10,000 square foot building on it. Upstairs, we built 2 labs. Downstairs, with a heated floor, will be our propagation, and then we bring it out into the other 4 acres that we have to develop our genetics, which we've already done a $1 million study in genetics with the University of Texas in Galveston. Genetics moving into tissue culture is the wave of the future. They'll move away from seeds and clones and aspects of that which are unstable. We now have under contract the Thorn Ranch, a 1,748 acre ranch with superior water rights. With these water rights, we will file for our suitability permits, our operational permits, and move into building and constructing a 10,000 square foot greenhouse. It costs us about $2 million. The Thorn Ranch is about $2.2 million. The other $500,000 out of a $5 million budget for Colorado will be to build out the rest of La Vida. Back in New York, we will have $2 million budgeted to build out our infused and beverage division manufacturing plant. We will budget $3 million in New York for our hemp research and development of our genetics and in New York to start our marketplace there, eventually looking to get a high THC license. We look to plant our first crop of high THC cannabis in early 2023, with just 3,000 pounds would equal 48,000 ounces. At just $200 an ounce would bring in revenues of $9.6 million. And that's our goal. 20 million, approximately one half of our $40 million of our initial raise, is scheduled for acquisitions to acquire companies that will bring in revenues that are immediately on the books of our corporation. We look in the next 6 months to 12 months, once fully funded from our Reggae offering, to acquire these companies and have cash flow started up while our research and development of our overseas subsidiaries and our New York and Colorado properties are being built. Our company has a two-pronged approach to the cannabis markets. One, we established overseas international infrastructure. We wanted the research and development to find therapies, treatments, and hopeful cures for mankind and its animals as well. The second prong approach to our methods is to find acquisitions that are immediately accretive to our corporation to bring in those revenues, as it will take a minimum of 18 months to get our licensing and our product development done in Israel and the US. It's very important for our shareholders to bring forth accretive revenues as we look to move to the NASDAQ in the spring of 2022. With our research and development to find hopeful cures, medical cannabis is the wave of the future, and the wave of the future is with buds. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Martin. I'd like to open the floor for questions. I have some here. In Israel, are you partnering with Technion Bar-Ilan University and the Weizmann Institute?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. We thank you for attending our seminar here. We have many great presenters here and high tech, and we're kind of low tech. We're into medical cannabis. It's been around 5,000 years. You know, if we have questions, we can go right to the questions. What would you like me to answer first? Barbara?
Just go ahead and let us know about your what products you specify what products you're pursuing with your research and development.
Well, first off, all of our research, we've completed our pilot studies here on genetics in the United States, and we work directly with the Hebrew University in Jerusalem with such prominent people as Dr. Elka Tuitu, who is the chairperson of our Israeli Scientific Board. Dr. Tuitu is recently retired, still has lab privileges, and she will run our clinical trials in Israel. And when you're doing clinical trials on human studies in Israel, it pretty much secures you to get into the FDA, the same quality of types that they have to, you know, to produce products. So our first products that will come out of Israel, again, once funding is complete by early next year, we will look to go into women's health, several products there, along with developing, you know, our New York property that will have formulations for in beverages and edibles.
Thank you. So you said you partnered with the Hebrew University. Any other partnerships that you can tell us about?
Well, primarily, you know, we're a lone wolf in that area. You know, I've been in this industry for 52 years. We know it intently. We have strains that are landrace strains, as they call them now, that come from, you know, from Colombia to Mexico to the Parvati Valley in India. And so these landrace strains, you know, are what we will look to put into the medical products. You know, there's basically two types of cannabis. You have cannabis indica and cannabis sativa. Many heard cannabis sativa, which is also in hemp. Then you have industrial sides of hemp, and you have the types that have CBD and CBG and all these other 115 different compounds. So all these are being studied. We're working on a university study in Sydney, Australia, but primarily all our work on clinical trials and developing product will be done in Israel to export to Australia. And once America gets fully decriminalized and off the Schedule 1s here, we will have the products here in America. Primarily, you have 50% of the companies in America and Canada will be out of business. They don't meet any of the FDA standards. So that's why I immediately went down in 2017 to Australia. 2018, we formed Weed Israel Cannabis Limited. 2019, I formed Weed Hong Kong Limited for our IP branding. We believe we have the best name, symbol, brand worldwide in the cannabis arena, and we look to build our own products vertically integrated. So that's why we have purchased the Thorn Ranch, the 1,700 acre plus ranch with 2 miles of waterfront. And if anybody knows Colorado in mining or agricultural, you need water rights, and we have superior water rights that start from the 1860s on in. So our initial building, as I said in the video, is a simple 12,000 square foot building, which gives us 10,000 square foot of growth and should bring in approximately $10 million. We can multiply that many times over as we build out and extract our licensing, and then we go into products. In La Veta, Colorado, we have a 10,000 square foot building on our 4 acres there. That's our lab. We have 2 labs built upstairs, downstairs with a heated floor. We have propagation, and then we bring our genetics out into the rest of the land. So my primary thing was not to just go after a fast buck, be a balance sheet. I built infrastructure worldwide. And from that aspect, we look to get the highest and best known products to the marketplace in the future.
I see 3 questions here. What disease indications are you approaching with your clinical trials?
Well, primarily, first off, would be our veterans. The prices that everybody charges in the United States, for cannabis is outrageously high. We can grow for $1 a gram, sell for $2 a gram. But with these high prices, the veterans can't afford it. So our primary goal is working with, companies from Alaska to Arizona and Florida to develop products, for PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, and then, and not a lesser degree, but in a different area of CBD and the cannabidiol products, you really work well with epilepsy, autism, and other aspects. But primarily, we will go after the PTSD as a main focus, while we're doing our clinical trials in Israel, again, starting with women's health, and then our formulas go into edibles and other delivery systems for people who don't smoke.
Besides Australia, Israel, and Hong Kong, what other markets are you looking to expand in and why? And is that a driver for your acquisition approach?
Yes, it is. Primarily in Australia is a gateway to Asia and Oceania. We've been offered large land parcels from Sri Lanka to Vanuatu and New Zealand. And so those areas of the world can't be overlooked. Australia is vast. I've been to Perth all the way down to Fremantle, and there's a lot of growing areas down there in the south. Primarily up in the north by Darwin is where we will build farms and build the domestic market first. There's maybe 35 public companies in Australia. Over 30 of them have really failed so far. Very few of them do anything as far as growing cannabis in Australia. And most people don't know that 40 to 50% of the opioids in the world are manufactured in Australia, primarily in Tasmania. So it's a major problem down there. So we look to go after the opioid addiction by getting medical cannabis out there. And again, Asia is a target area for that. Israel is our gateway to Europe. So therefore, we will take our products, to Europe. We will bring our products down to Australia, and we await for the rules to change and decriminalize, like I said, and get off the Schedule 1 and lower to Schedule 3 or 4 or off the Controlled Substance Act. We're in a highly regulated market. We have 16 states now in the United States that are full legal, and we also have 35 plus states that have a state level medical program. We're hoping with the Biden administration and the historic vote of Kamala Harris that they will follow through on what they've promised, and that is to get this off the regulated aspect of our industry. So we look to bring products worldwide. We'll start in the United States. We will grow in Colorado. Eventually it will cross state lines. So that's why we went for a large ranch there. So we can definitely build our hemp fields. We can build our THC greenhouses. And in the next 2 years, that will start up. And therefore we can go across state lines and supply all of the United States.
Are you competing with Northern California's market, being so close to Colorado?
Well, California probably supplies half of the cannabis in the entire United States, and probably most of that is illegal. So it's the largest market in the world. It's probably half of the world market itself, and we do target California. We're looking at projects in the Coachella Valley, down in Southern California, just north of the Salton Sea. We have a couple projects there. One is an aquaponics project. Why aquaponics? Well, the fish and the fish excrement are perfect pHs to grow hydroponic, high THC, not to mention the grants that will be available in that area. So California is a target market for us. Like I say, we're in New York already. We're in Colorado. I'm based in Arizona. You're talking to me in Tucson, Arizona. And our next target to bring in large projects is in California. $5 million is budgeted for Israel, $5 million is budgeted for New York, $5 million for Colorado, and $5 million for Australia. The other $20 million is for acquisitions. So we look to partner with, high-powered people in this industry. We look to touch the plant, and we look to bring in immediately a creative revenue is our next goal. So once we have the revenues coming in properly, hopefully by the end of this year, the sooner from this raise, we invite everybody to come aboard. So we put our minimum at only $1,000 to invest. So we talk to the stoners that meet Wall Street, and we're looking for the high-powered hedge funds that really want to look for the future of cannabis in America, and that's where we'll start.
Okay, and I have questions here. What are your thoughts on expansion to India or Asia?
Asia is a tricky market, primarily basing out of Hong Kong. We would look to, export CBD products to the mini dragons in Singapore and Taiwan and Hong Kong, et cetera. So, a lot of hemp has been grown in the Fujian province in China. Our attorneys in China are the third largest law firm there, so they can raise the large money that we need. We look to build, huge farms that are solar powered using high-powered solar powered farms that would, conserve on energy and things of that nature. So we're looking at Sri Lanka. We look at sustainability projects in India, but primarily we will start with Australia, build a domestic market there, and then look to export to Asia, like we said, with the technology and research coming out of universities in Israel.
Okay, thank you so much. Any other questions from the audience? Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Martin. And now no problem. I'd like to present our final presenter, Mr. Stephen Cook with Volante Aircar. Volante Aircar is developing the world's first mass-produced street-legal personal airplane and currently working to build proof of concept prototype, obtain an FAA DOT certification, and go into volume production by January 1st, 2025. And now for a 5-minute video presentation.
Hi, I'm Stephen Cook. I'm a manufacturing engineer. My business is building the Volante Aircar. It comfortably seats 5, handles well, and gets 35 miles per gallon on the road and using ordinary gasoline. And with the optional vertical takeoff and landing package, you can skip the airport and take off right from your local neighborhood vertiport. But the aircar we're planning is currently designed as a CAD model on the computer screen. The business plan and financial plans are complete. We're excited to secure the funds and complete the design, build the prototype, and have the FAA and DOT certify the aircar. And I loaded up this. This is the car portion of the Volante. This is the center wing section of the Volante, and then over there are the actual wings. So I drive this around my neighborhood, It's got a Yamaha Raptor motor in it, 660 cc's. It really gets up and goes. So it actually has a Lycoming 0320 motor. It's a 4-cylinder, 150 horsepower aircraft motor. It has a wood propeller, and it's a pusher prop behind it. Henry Ford once said, "Mark my word, a combination airplane and motor car is coming. You may smile, but it will come." In addition, I met with Burt Rutan, the most prolific aircraft designer and builder that ever lived. We plan to hire the company he founded, Scaled Composites, to build the prototype, as they are arguably the best in the world at building composite prototype aircraft. Burt's company is now owned by Northrop Grumman, the company that builds the most advanced aircraft in the world, the B-2 bomber. This is an idea whose time has come. Most importantly, the aircar will bring greater prosperity and freedom to a whole new segment of society and make the whole world a better place to live, travel, and enjoy life. My biggest challenge so far is generating the faith necessary in others to invest in this awesome new technology that will revolutionize the personal transportation industry as much as Henry Ford's Model T and the Wright brothers Flyer combined. I've already got my family and friends believing that the Volante air cars are the future of personal transportation. However, they wonder why I'm so obsessed with bringing this new technology to market. This is my dream, it's my passion, and we will succeed. There are already a couple of existing flying cars out there on the market, but the Volante air car carries twice the number of passengers, twice as far, at twice the speed, and at half the price of the existing models.
Is essentially a Tesla with wings. This is a 5-passenger vehicle. It holds mom and dad and 3 kids or your friends, and it can go up to 150 to 200 miles an hour. And it's VTOL. Now this is just a CAD model at this point, but we actually just acquired a company called Volante Aircraft from KP Rice in California just this year. And he built an actual working flying car that actually does both drive and fly. And it fits in my garage, and I do drive it around the neighborhood, and you can't believe the looks I get on people's faces when they say, "What is that?" I had a military helicopter pilot pull me over and say, "What is that?" And I said, "It's a flying car." It only takes about 5 minutes and a couple little kids from the neighborhood to help me put the wings on. And so I don't have the push button pivot wings yet, but I'm working on them. So, but as you can see, all the prototypes here are all vertical takeoff and landing. We get that. We understand that's the future is VTOL. And so, even though we have this prototype here, it fits in my garage, it drives, it flies, we're looking to the future, to a VTOL 5-seat aircraft, 200 miles an hour, affordable. The piston version will be 175K with a range of 750 miles. So you take a modern Tesla and a modern Velocity, you put them together and you get the air car. So our target market is a tech-savvy early adopter, probably a pilot or someone who's willing to become a pilot, who makes over $100,000 a year. The served available market, SAM, 180 billion. Total addressable market is 1.8 trillion. So our competitors, you can see Aeromobile out of Slovakia. They actually have a working prototype. Lilium Jet out of Munich, Germany. Kitty Hawk Cora, California, as well as the other competitors here. So you can see our vehicle. It's vertical takeoff and landing, 5 seats, roadable, pricing 175K. We have one order, that's for my first one, and 200 miles an hour, range 750 miles. And I want to note here on our competitors, Samsung Switchblade now has not just 800 orders, but they have over 1,100 orders right now for their aircraft. And theirs is, I believe, a 2-seat, and it's not vertical takeoff and landing. So why this, why now, why me? So, well, it's fast, it's a fun way to travel with next generation flight control systems. And I have the passion and I have the skills and the team in Salt Lake City, Utah to bring this vehicle to market. And thank you for your time. Do you have any questions?
Thank you for a great presentation. I have a question regarding the performance. How does performance compare to a helicopter? And what is the takeoff and landing runway size?
Okay, thank you, everyone. I appreciate the time to talk with everyone today. My name is Stephen Cook. I'll answer the question first. The takeoff distance is about 15 to 100 feet to 2,000 feet to take off. All the runways that I take off from are always 3,000 to 5,000 feet long because I like to have lots of extra room in case I need it. And what was the first question? Compared to a helicopter, right? Okay, so most helicopters are actually pretty slow. I mean, obviously military helicopters can fly even faster than my existing prototype. My prototype will go between 120 to 150 miles per hour in the air. I have not yet flown it, but Colonel KP Rice, who built it, has flown it about 40 hours in its current, 17 hours in its current state.
Okay, and let's see. Other questions, audience? Okay, I think there's a question regarding your competitive advantage. Please let us know what your competitive advantage is over the other existing prototypes.
Okay, so I just need to make it clear that we have an existing prototype. The Volante version 2 is what's in my garage currently. Now it is currently a 2-seat vehicle, just like a lot of my competitors are, but it's our new version 3 that we plan to take into mass production, and it's a 5-seat vehicle. It's a hybrid electric with 350 horsepower. So the advantage that gives us over our competitors is most of our competitors, like Terrafugia, which is also a spinoff out of MIT, is just a 2-seat vehicle. And Samsung, which is up in Bend, Oregon, is also a 2-seat vehicle. And so as soon as you have mom and dad have a baby, now you need a 3-seat vehicle. So 2-seat vehicles I don't see as really viable, mostly maybe for a sports car, but for the average American family or around the world, a 2-seat vehicle is not going to really be sufficient for most families. And that's why we're scaling this up to a 5-seat vehicle, and it'll be a hybrid electric it'll be electric like a Tesla, but we'll also have a turbine engine. So if you want to go long distances, like maybe 750 miles or 1,000 miles, you could kick in the turbine engine and travel, 150 to 200 miles an hour and have a range of, 750 or more miles.
Okay, what are the urban airspace regulation issues?
So I'm a student pilot. I've got 158 hours of flight time, and our aircraft meets all aircraft regulations. And so I know they're developing new urban air mobility regulations, but we comply with the existing FAA regulations as both a car and as an airplane. And so if you look up, there's different classes of airspace, A, B, C, D, E, the different classes of airspace, and we comply with all those regulations. I think maybe that answers the question.
Okay, and how many hurdles do you perceive to encounter, such as like health? I think there's challenges such as noise, health regulations.
Sure. That's a really good question. One option is that we are planning to be a hybrid electric. So for local flight under 100 miles, you can travel on electricity. And I have 34 solar panels on my roof right now. So just like a Tesla or other electric vehicles, for local flights, you can just use your solar panels in your house to charge your vehicle. And then when you want to go further, you can put the fuel in it and actually kick in the turbine for long distance flights.
Thank you. Please let us know also the valuation plan for your company.
So I'm not sure if you meant the valuation of the market capitalization, or I'm not sure what that term, or what they're meaning with that term.
It's from the audience here. He's commented about what is the valuation plan for your company.
Oh, I see. Okay. So I would like to speak to that. So within 5 years, we plan to have our new version 3 prototype within 2 years up and flying, and then we'll get FAA DOT certification. And then 5 years from now, we plan to produce 3,000 units a year, and we're going to sell them for $180,000 a piece. Now, we can manufacture them for $90,000 a piece, and then we'll have a 50% markup on it. But we plan to use $5,000 of that to pay for your private pilot training, because some people will buy them that already have a pilot's license, but many won't. And so included in the price of the vehicle is your pilot training in the vehicle. So that's an annual revenue of $540 million a year, just 5 years from now. And we plan to grow it into be $1 billion company. And I've previously met with Bill Ford at World Headquarters and pitched it to the Ford Motor Company. And I used to be an engineer at Ford Motor Company. I've also presented this to Burt Rutan. And so we plan to partner with some of these companies like potentially Ford or Polaris. And I would like to mention there's a lot of competitors out there that are doing this, are working on it. Boeing, Airbus, Joby has been funded by Toyota, and they've had about $800 million in investment, and they just are doing an IPO for $6 billion right now. Lilium Jet in Munich, Germany, Hyundai, General Motors, Fiat Chrysler, Google, Kitty Hawk Cora, Terrafugia was purchased with an exit by Geely Automotive, a Chinese billion-dollar firm purchased Terrafugia, which was out of MIT also, and Samson Motors out of Bend or Redmond, Oregon. And so there's a lot of companies getting into this business. Our vehicle was designed by Colonel KP Rice, who designed the OV-10 Bronco for the Marines. And we're planning to file patents on our brand new design right here. I personally designed that myself in SolidWorks, and we're filing patents on this new design. And we were supposed to be on Shark Tank last year, but we have to fly it again. So I just bought all brand new avionics for my aircraft, and it's getting really cheap now for avionics. I just paid $7,500 for all brand new avionics for my prototype that we're going to install. I've got it right here. This whole touch screen panel right here was only $3,000, and I'll have all my instruments right here on this panel. And I've got a book of over 100 patents over the last 100 years of flying cars. And so we're going to help bring that technology to market. Henry Ford put the world on wheels. At Cook Flying Car and Volante, we're going to put the world on wings. You can see right here, for flight application on my tablet. I can actually navigate my airplane using my Apple tablet, and it has every airport in all of America. It has weather, winds, airport runways, everything I need to know is right on my tablet to fly this aircraft, and with all the instruments in here. So we're prepared to cut the cost. Our competitors want to charge millions of dollars for their vehicles. Having been a manufacturing engineer for 25 years, I understand how to do Six Sigma quality and how to bring the cost down and keep the quality high to produce a safe vehicle and mass produce it for where not everyone can afford 180 grand, but there are a lot of people right now that can, and they're buying airplanes that are 50 years as old as me, 50 years old, that are and they're paying $50,000 or $100,000 for an airplane that's older than I am often. And I believe that the future is to have a Lexus or a Tesla, a brand new, beautiful, clean airplane for a price that people can actually afford to purchase.
Thank you. I also have a few other questions here. Oh, sorry about that. How does the value of the company grow?
Right. So, this is my passion. I want to be in this business my whole life. But the thing is, I think eventually we're going to have to plan to have an exit strategy to sell to one of the 800-pound gorillas. Because if we're able to exit in 7 to 10 years to Ford Motor Company or one of the big players, I think that would be ideal because they can take this globally. It's going to take a lot of capital to A&DOT certification, and then $100 million to build a factory and go in production. But if we're able to partner with Ford or Polaris or Tesla or Apple, then we could have them help capitalize the business and bring it into mass production for the world. And I think that's our way of growing this into be a $20 billion company within 10 years. And that's a great exit strategy for our investors as well.
It'd be hard to partner with Apple since they like to do everything on their own.
Right.
I have some more questions here. How much cash do you need to become a small player in the market? So
I know this is a tough question for some investors, particularly here in Utah, but the reality is it's going to take $5 million. We're going to hire Northrop Grumman to build a brand new prototype. And when I met with Scaled Composites and I met with Burt Rutan, they said, you're boring me. This is easy. We build spaceships. They said a flying car is so simple. I was boring them, but that's what I wanted to hear. And so it's $5 million to build a new prototype, 20 million for certification, and 100 million to build a factory. But if we're able to partner with one of the big OEMs like Ford Motor Company, then they may be able to do the round 3 of funding for us, the 100 million, because they already have factories right now with excess capacity. So maybe we could get into it for 25 million if we're able to partner with Ford or someone like that. And I have personally met with Bill Ford at World Headquarters and discussed this with him.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? Is a USA auto manufacturer the right path?
You know, I've lived in Brazil and I've lived in Mexico and I've worked in Israel and I've worked in Europe, and we'll certainly be happy to partner with places all over the world that may give us a quicker path to certification. But I live in Salt Lake City, Utah. There's massive military suppliers of composites right here in Utah. Northrop Grumman, Boeing, and also Williams International for the turbine engine is made right here in Ogden, Utah. And so I'm willing to look internationally, but I've got a lot of the players I need to work with right here in my own backyard. So, you know, I like to partner and bring a lot of jobs to Utah. If I'm able to build a factory right here in Utah and bring a lot of high paying jobs to my fellow Utahns, then I'm happy to do that. And by the way, I coach freestyle mogul skiing at Deer Valley, and it's some of the best skiing in the world right here. So who wouldn't want to come and ski on the weekends with me at Deer Valley?
Thank you so much. Is Utah Jobs a company, not a growth valuation company?
No, I'm just saying that I want to bring a lot of jobs to my home state of Utah.
Thank you. We just have some great questions from venture capital portfolio companies here. Any other points you would like to let us know about your product and closing remarks?
Yeah, okay. The one question is, what did Bill Ford say? And I have to be honest with you. His attorney told me this meeting never happened. They said, if you go to the media, we'll deny it. Ford Motor is not building flying cars. But that was many years ago. And now there's over 400 companies in this building drones for human use. And so Bill Ford, I think, was really interested. And I quoted his great grandfather, Henry Ford, that, mark my word, a combination airplane or motor car is coming. You may smile, but it will come. And Bill Ford said to me, he says, don't try to school me about what my great grandpa said. I know what he said. And I really do believe that even at the time, the timing wasn't right when I was at Ford Motor Company, but I do believe that the time is right now. And part of it is just the electronics are so cheap. I mean, this was $3,000, which I cashed in my retirement from Ford Motor Company and my current retirement. I put in $50,000 to restore my prototype, to be able to get my prototype up and working. And we're going to hire a military pilot to take it out to the desert to fly it. KP told my wife not to let me fly the prototype because I'm a rookie pilot. And so we're going to hire a military test pilot to fly the prototype here in the next couple months. We're going to Big Boy Toy Show in Las Vegas, and we expect to be on Shark Tank in August as well. But we would rather raise the capital right here and give the equity to investors right here at a great valuation for both, a win-win for both us and the investor. And, you know, I expect to be a $20 billion company within 10 years.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cook. And now for our final featured entrepreneur guest. I welcome 30-year proven industry tech veteran and founder of TruckingTower.com, Mr. Andy Hedrick. TruckingTower.com helps trucking executives generate more revenue by using proven tech industry experience. Proven tech industry experience CEO with a track record and stability in the industry, as well as using proprietary software solutions to prove their 2V to 2R conversion model, providing the insights and solutions for trucking executives. That's truckingtower.com for any questions. And now I'd like to wrap it up. Thank you to everybody that participated today. I'd like to thank from Brian Emerson and the Starlight Capital Technology team. We would like to thank you to the attendees. We value your feedback. So tomorrow we'll send an email welcoming your thoughts on today's conference. The first 4 people who respond will win $25 in Amazon gift certificates. And lastly, our next conference will be Thursday, May 13th, same time, So please, we welcome your nominations of innovative companies. My name is Barbara Onwiko. Thank you.
This is Brian and Barbie. I want to congratulate you for a great show. Thank you all for coming. We had a great turnout. It's great to see you all. Even Jack McHugh made it. So hope you all come back and we'll see you again on May 13th. If you want to stick around and network, you're welcome. We'll keep the screen open for a little while. Bye-bye.
If anyone would like to continue networking, keep your camera on. You can contact each other using chat or directly. Thank you. Thank you, Veron Vehicles. I think they're advertising here. VeronVehicles.com is their website. Thank you to Brian.
Yes, thank you.
Our moderator, Gaurav Rawat.
I'm not done with Jack, though. Hey, Jack, tell us about your venture fund.
Hi, Brian. And yes, thank you for including me in what has been, and I have to confess, I had to jump off a few times to handle other venture stuff that I'm doing. But boy, a lot of companies reaching for the stars here today.
And Jack, tell me what your firm focuses on.
Well, I mean, 11.2 Ventures is focused on using AI to build solutions, companies that solve certain problems in industries. And it's, I think we should focus on your companies here and on everything else that's going on with Starlight, Brian. I mean, but thank you for the offer. It's been an interesting way, right? Because I think there's a collision that can happen between lots of these different approaches.
Right. Thanks, Jack, again for joining us. Also, I see we've got Jonathan Gubin on. Jonathan, what are you doing? If you want to tell us a little bit about your latest endeavor or two. You want to unmute Jonathan, or are you tied up? Okay, maybe Jonathan's tied up. How about Mark Littman? Mark, are you on?
I am.
All
yes,
right.
I am. Thank you.
Good, good. Well, thank you for bringing Tom to our attention. Sounds like you guys really have some dynamic plans there.
Absolutely. We're very excited about the NTS chip that, as Tom very well explained at the beginning of the program, is scheduled to replace a battery and then no recharging and no replacing. So it's pretty game-changing, exciting, and very glad to be part of this very good seminar today with some great presentations.
Super. Well, thanks again for joining us. Let me pick on Gary Turner for a moment. Gary, why don't you come off mute and tell us a little bit about what you're doing. It's been great working with you over the last few years.
You bet. I appreciate it, Brian. My main endeavor currently is really to set up a website portal, I will call it, where a lot of various types of business resources can be brought together. You'll find Brian there, and it's just been my experience that in the world of Googling and looking for people, that you can find very specific resources in a lot of different places. So I'm trying to bring them all together in one spot where you might be able to find debt assistance, equity assistance, and other types of business consultants. And the website will be onestop.financial or One Stop Financial Network. And we hope to be live in another 2 to 3 months.
Very exciting. Thanks so much for joining us. How about Dan Logue? Dan, are you in DC, I remember, doing some angel investor work? Are you there, Dan?
I am here. How are you? How are you?
Good. Thanks for hanging in till the end.
You bet. You bet. These are just amazing companies. It's unbelievable where you find these guys. This is really interesting. The concepts are really good. The background's good. Once you get past the product, you get back into the business side of this. Those look pretty good. So happy to be here today, and keep me in mind for anything else coming up.
Great. And Dan, did I remember correctly that you're doing was it mainly angel investing in DC, or did you have a different focus?
Yeah, we have about 1,200 people in our circle out here that we've acquired in the last 11. We're into our 11th year out here. We've gone through about 800 or 900 companies, and we ran out of good local companies some years back. So we basically look at anything across the U.S. We have partnerships in Korea, China, Poland, and we've sent some companies over to Poland. We have investment groups over there that are looking at some certain types of technologies, as well as my brain just went blank, Korea and China. So we have a grant program that we're working with. We sent over about half a dozen companies to Poland. They have some grant programs over there which help build some companies through here. We've had some good luck there. So we're really all over the place.
Good. Well, listen, thanks for joining us. I realize our Zoom time's going to be over here in a couple seconds, so I'll have to jump off. But thank you again all for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you again then on May 13th. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Brian.
If anyone has nominations for any technology, please let Brian Emerson know. His email is emersonb@starlightcapital.co. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. See you later.
Bye.